Okay, so I'm picking up with my screencast on Charlotte Perkins Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper, and I forgot to mark down my place. I think I'm pretty sure that I was talking about coming back to the wallpaper and how uh, she's dwelling on it so much. She's trying to figure out this pattern, and so she has nothing else to do. She's laying in bed and she's looking at this wallpaper trying to figure out the pattern. And so she goes into multiple ways of how she's looking at it in one direction, and this is what she's seeing, and then she's looking at another direction, and this is what it's seeing. But then on the other hand, it's going this way and horizontally, and it's definitely an obsession at this point. Um, but it makes her tired, so she decides she's going to take a nap and deal with it later. So in our fourth entry, we see almost immediately that her condition has deteriorated even further. She says, I don't know why I should write this. I don't want to. I don't feel able. But I must say what I feel and think in some way is such a great relief. She doesn't want to write, but she feels she needs to find some relief. So John, she's sleeping a lot. She's lying down ever so much. She's awfully lazy. John has started a whole new regimen of medicines that he wasn't using before. She tries to convince him to let her leave the house. Dear John, he again, please read these with sarcasm because that's exactly how they're intended. Dear John, he loves me very dearly and hates to have me sick. I tried to have a real, earnest, reasonable talk with him the other day and tell him how I wish he could let me go and make a visit to Cousin Henry and Julia, but he said I wasn't able to go, nor able to stand it after I got there, and I did not make out a good case for myself, for I was crying before I had finished. She wants to go visit some family, and he tells her that she can't go because she was crying literally before she had even finished asking. He says Dear John gathered me up in his arms and just carried me upstairs and laid me on the bed and sat by me and read to me till it tired my head. He said I was his darling and his comfort and all he had, and that I must take care of myself for his sake and keep well. He says no one but myself can help me out of it, that I must use my will and self control and not let any silly fancies run away with me. Here again, dismissing the fact that it's real to her, whatever that it is she's feeling, but it's silly to him. Um, and so the one comfort that she finds that nowadays at this point is that the baby is well and happy and that he doesn't have to stay in the nursery with the horrid wallpaper. The other thing is she started hiding things from them. She says, of course I never mention it to them anymore. I'm too wise, but I keep watch of it all the time. So she is keeping secrets. She's not complaining anymore because it falls on deaf ears. Nobody listens to her. Nobody takes her seriously. So she's just stopped mentioning it, but she's watching it all the same. Um, she says there are things in that paper that nobody knows but me or ever will. Behind that outside pattern, the dim shapes get clearer every day. It's always the same shape, only very numerous, and it is like a woman stooping down and creeping about behind that pattern. I don't like it a bit. I begin to think, I wish John would take me away from here. So she's figured out that behind this pattern there's a woman, and the woman is stooping and creeping about behind it, and she wishes that she could get away from it. Okay, entry 5. She tries to talk to John, but it's so hard because he is so wise and because he loves me so. But I tried it last night. It was moonlight. John was asleep. She hated to waken him, so I kept still and watched the moonlight on that undulating wallpaper till I felt creepy. The faint figure behind seemed to shake the pattern just as if she wanted to get out. I got up softly and went to feel the paper and see if the paper did move, and when I came back, John was awake. Um, So she thinks that the woman, the figure moving behind the pattern, she's laying awake and watching it. She didn't want to wake up John. That she is shaking the wallpaper as if she's trying to get out. So she actually gets out of bed and goes to check to see if the wallpaper was really moving. Which wakes up John. And I love this. His response: "What is it, little girl?" He said. Still, John's a jerk. I don't know if y'all figured that out already. A dismissive jerk. She says, "I thought it was a good time to talk, so I told him that I was really not gaining here and that I wish he would take me away." And he says, "Oh, well, our lease is going to be up in 3 weeks. The repairs are not done at home, and I cannot possibly leave town just now. Of course, if you were in any danger, I could and would. But you really are better, dear, whether you can see it or not. I'm a doctor. Trust me, I'm a doctor. I know. Your appetite's better. You're gaining flesh and color. I feel much easier about you." And then he says, "Bless her little heart. She shall be as sick as she pleases." Okay, so again, dismissing her. She says that she may be better in body, but it's her mind that's suffering. And of course, that doesn't sit very well with him. He says, "My darling, I beg of you, for my sake and for our child's sake, as well as for your own, me first, child second, you last, right? That you will never for one instant let that idea enter your mind. There is nothing so dangerous, so fascinating to a temperament like yours. It is a false and foolish fancy. Can you not just trust me as a physician when I tell you so?" So she said no more. He thought she was sleeping. She wasn't. She lay there for hours trying to figure out whether the front and the back pattern were moving together or separately, each one moving on its own accord. Okay. Entry number 6. We begin with the wallpaper. Big surprise. And how it is a constant irritant to a normal mind. The pattern is torturing her. She says, "You think you have mastered it, but just as you get it well underway and following, it turns a back somersault, and there you are. It slaps you in the face, knocks you down, and tramples upon you. It is like a bad dream." She cannot figure out the pattern. It's changing constantly. It's changing with the light. Um, and that is the big secret that she has figured out, that it changes with the light. So in the daytime, it looks like a growing fungus. It reminds her of like toadstools, mushrooms, budding and sprouting in endless convolutions. And that's just sometimes. But nighttime is when the pattern bothers her the most. Because in the dark, and that can be any kind of darkness, light, twilight, candlelight, lamplight, and worst of all, by moonlight, it becomes bars, the outside pattern, I mean, and the woman behind it as plain as can be. So during the daytime, it's like fungus, growing toadstools, mushrooms, trippy kind of acid trip bothering her. At nighttime, it's much sinister. It becomes bars, and she can clearly see the woman behind it. She says by daylight, she is subdued and quiet, just like her, right? She is more subdued and quiet, more restless at night. She's sleeping all day long now. Um, and she says, "I lie down ever so much. John says it is good for me and to sleep all I can. Indeed, he has started the habit by making me lie down for an hour after each meal. It is a very bad habit, I'm convinced, for you see, I don't sleep." And then she doesn't tell him she's awake. She's hiding things from him. And then the sentence that is kind of powerful. "The fact is, I'm getting a little afraid of John. He seems very queer sometimes." And she thinks that the paper is what's behind it. She says, "I have watched him when he did not know I was looking and come to the room suddenly on the most innocent excuses, and I've caught him several times looking at the paper. And I caught Jenny, her sister-in-law, touching it and looking at it too." Um, And so the reason that they are acting queer, she believes, has to do with the wallpaper. But she is determined that nobody shall find out its secret but herself. Okay? Entry 7. She says, life is very much more exciting now than it used to be. You see, I have something more to expect, to look forward to watch. Yeah, she's talking about the wallpaper. Um, she feels like she's really close to figuring out what the secret is. But John's happy, right? Because she's improving. She's eating better. She's more quiet than she was, which is exactly what he wants. He wants her subdued and calm and quiet, right? Seen, not heard. She had no intention of telling him it was because of the wallpaper, because he would make fun of her and he might even want to take her away. She says, I don't want to leave now until I have found it out. There is a week more, and I think that will be enough. She's so close. She doesn't want to leave until she's figured it out. All right. Entry 8, she's even better. She doesn't sleep much at night, for it is so interesting to watch developments, but she sleeps all day. At daytime, it's tiresome and perplexing. There are always new shoots on the fungus and new shades of yellow. She can't keep count of them. She says that it's the strangest yellow, that wallpaper. It makes me think of all the yellow things I ever saw. Not beautiful ones like buttercups, but old, foul, bad yellow things. And now, much to our chagrin, it's started to smell. It's creeping all about the house, that smell. She smells it in the rain. It creeps all over the house. It gets into her hair. It is a peculiar odor, too. She can't really figure it out. The best way she can describe it is that it is a yellow smell. It is like the color of the wallpaper. She it used to disturb her at first, so much so that she seriously thought of burning the house to figure out what the smell was. If you can't tell, which hopefully you are very tuned in, um, while she thinks she's getting better and better, she's actually deteriorating further and faster and farther. Um, and here we are, where it's escalating quickly. She is hallucinating. She is imagining that she can smell this yellow smell, and it's not bad. She says it's very gentle. It's very gentle, subtle, um, but it never leaves. It's everywhere all the time. And in addition, she has noticed that there is a very funny mark on the wall, low down near the mop board. So we're probably talking about um, so I'm thinking tall ceilings. So it's probably they had paneling like on the bottom, and then the wallpaper stretched kind of up into like two sections, so the wall was kind of split by a board in the middle, which probably would have been maybe right about shoulder level. It goes behind every piece of furniture except for the bed, and she says it's a long, straight, even smooch. We're going to say that's smudge, as if it had been rubbed over and over. And she wonders how it was done, who did it, what they did it for, round and round and round, round and round and round. It makes me dizzy. Okay? Entry 9, she has discovered something at last. Through watching so much at night when it changes so, I have finally found out. The front pattern does move, and no wonder the woman behind is shaking it. Sometimes I think there are a great many women behind, and sometimes only one, and she crawls around fast, and her crawling shakes it all over. But when the daylight, she keeps really still, and in the very shady spots, she's grabbing hold of the bars and she's shaking them hard. So when the light is on, the daylight is in, it's very still and subdued. At nighttime, in the dark places, she becomes more active. Okay? She says, and she is all the time trying to climb through, but nobody could climb through that pattern. It strangles so. I think that is why it has so many heads. They get through, and then the pattern strangles them off and turns them upside down and makes their eyes white. If those heads were covered or taken off, it would not be half so bad. So now it's not just one woman who can't get out, it's multiple heads that are getting through, and sticking out of the bars. Okay? As if this wasn't scary enough. All right. So I'm going to stop this one here. We got one last one to go, and we'll finish up on the yellow wallpaper in just a few minutes.